right, so here we are. I don't know if I'm more excited about getting my workbench back and getting all these parts off the floor or what, but here we go. Man, this is a full teardown of the piping, the turbo, all of the oil and coolant lines, exhaust, had to do some suspension pieces. So here we go. This is the start of it. I'm gonna be getting this up in the air, get the motor hung, get access through the motor mount, and then we'll start piecing this thing back together. Hope I remember how it all goes. I've got my GPlus intercooler. I really recommend on certain parts going cheap Amazon or eBay. You know, you get charge pipes, there's just certain things that you don't need to go expensive on. And those are one of the things. And here is the Pure Stage 2. I had it rebuilt after mine blew, and they gave me the updated version. And this thing is like, you could eat off of it. It is so clean, so nice. I love it. Here's the old turbo, so you can see the difference in the wheel size and the inlet here. They machine all this out and put the bigger turbine in it. So I'm really stoked about that. So we'll get that installed today. I've got Armytrix Exhaust on the car, Turbo Smart blow-off valve, so I get the cool ricer sound. Did my water pump recently, maintenance before mods. I got my Armytrix catless downpipe. I got all my turbo parts here, FTP full boost kit. If you look through my feed, I've got a custom Ram cold air intake on there. All right. Got the lift under the car, got the motor supported, and we're gonna start assembling the turbo. First thing I'm gonna do is set the wastegate actuator to 6 or 7 inches of mercury. 6, I should be able to spin that little door with some effort. 7, it should be solid shut, and that'll make sure that based on the amount of vacuum the system is applying through this little module right here and be attached to this guy. This is the pneumatic wastegate. We'll be good to go. So I'm just gonna set that because it's a heck of a lot easier to do it on the bench. Plenty of YouTube videos about that. So once I get that done, then I'm gonna start doing the lines, and I've got some liquid moly turbocharge additive. That'll just help in case there's any delay in the oil getting to the turbo upon startup, so that there's no issues. I'm also gonna be pulling a fuse for the high pressure fuel pump and prime this thing with some cranks so I get plenty of oil throughout the system as well too. So, which is a common thing when you do any kind of major service, oil filter housing gasket, or anything where you're really draining the oil 100%. So that's where we'll be headed next. There we go. So at 6 inches, we're closed, but I can still move the gate a little bit. And at 7, it's solid. All right, so I got the lines in and the actuator set. Got the car up in the air. And so now I'm gonna be removing this. I just put back in loosely so I could lower the motor back down, but I'm gonna be removing this so that we can get access to shove the turbo up in there, which, as you can see, is a really fun job because I gotta hit one of those 15 bolts, get a nut on it, and hold it up there somehow. So it's kind of fun. And then I'll be connecting the coolant pipe and the water lines and the oil lines. Got to get the gasket in there. These gaskets over here, these were new when I installed the turbo just recently. You can see they're a little bit tapered based on the direction, so I need to pay attention to the direction they were sitting. But these will go up in here like this. And sit in there. You should always inspect your O-rings on your feed and return lines for your coolant and oil. I checked mine. There was one I needed to replace. It was loose. Pure recommends go ahead and just replace these lines when you install. I did mine recently on my last install, and so I'm just double checking the O-rings, but that's very important to do as well. And as I mentioned, I added that additive liquid moly to prime the turbo in case it dries up at all or doesn't get oil right away for some odd reason. Something catastrophic happens, at least I won't burn it out, so upon first startup at least. So that's that. The motor mount is out, so you can see how much room you got in there. Pretty much the only way to get the N55 Turbo out. If you saw my V58 video, you can get those out from up above. They did a little bit better at engineering the serviceability of those motors and turbos, which should be expected, as I'm sure a lot of the dealerships complained about having to do turbo swaps. So now I am going to lower my lift a little bit so I have enough room to reach up in there. I'm going to try to get this on time lapse because this should be entertaining. Got one on there. It's resting. It's so tight that it doesn't really have a place to fall. All right, there it is. I got that one in first while the turbo rested over here against the heat shield. I pushed it up the rest of the way and got that nut on by myself. Got that nut on. So I'm just gonna go through here. I'm not gonna tighten all these down all the way, of course. I want some freedom to move this turbo around so I can get all my lines set, get my coolant line in place, as long as it doesn't cut off access to any of the bolts. And then I'm going to Google the specific bolt pattern. You go to a specific inch-pounds of torque or foot-pounds, low foot-pounds of torque through the first cycle, and then you have to do it all over again in a certain pattern. So that is the proper way. I did recheck the wastegate because, again, it's a pain to do it here, but I did recheck the wastegate after I did the lines just in case I bumped anything or anything came loose, and it was still right where it should be. So we're moving right along. Water pump, coolant lines, exhaust, intake, intercooler, sway, that's it, sway bar. Jeez, this sucks. I'm excited to drive my car though. All right, got all the studs in the exhaust. And that one by far on the bottom is most difficult because you have to get your ratchet up in between the hot and the cold side of the turbo. And so you're completely blind, and I found it was easiest to do it from the top side. I am going to go through the tightening, two-step tightening process. Got everything tightened down to spec, torque specs. I'm gonna get this lower bracket on. Just need to tighten it down, and then I'm gonna do the coolant pipe that wraps around here and connects here and then goes over to the water pump. And then I'll do the water pump and just kind of try to clean everything up here down below. You do the motor mount. So things are just kind of coming together now. So I got the lines in and attached to the block. 1, 2, and this one way up in here, 3. And the 4th is right there, right here, and that'll go to the coolant line. But next I wanted to show you, this is why you got to pull the coolant if you want to do it the easy way to install your blow-off valve. Go fast bits or the Turbo Smart dual port like I got. That'll go on next. But look at this thing. So clean, man. Look at that. It's never gonna be that clean again. It's all downhill from here. But it sure does look nice right now. If you're not familiar with the dual port from Turbo Smart, our cars normally, from the factory, when they relieve boost, it will go back into the car so you don't lose any air. And obviously when you have a blow-off valve venting to atmosphere, it relieves that to the air, and that's what gives a nice blow-off valve sound. So the dual port does just that. I think over a particular PSI, it vents to atmosphere, but in low duty, it will recirculate it and put it back into the system. They don't say you need a tune for it, but my tuner says you need a tune for it. Obviously, when I went custom tune, you can run it without a tune, but it definitely would not be optimized. But you can see how this works here. As this gets relieved, some is going back into it, and then if you get enough pressure pushing against it, that'll open up the vent to atmosphere. This thing sounds pretty cool. I enjoy it a lot, and it's way faster and more accurate than the Go Fast Bits piece. So I actually installed this without pulling the water pump, just to prove to myself that you could. I had to make a special tool to fit it in there. It was awful. I've never uploaded the video because if I saw it, I'd probably just get mad again. That's how frustrating it was. It was brutal. So I'm going to throw this in here now, but a lot easier with the water pump and everything drained. Nice and clean. So it's the next day. I went to BMW and got my gasket. They had 5 of them in stock. These are supposed to be replaced every time you pull the downpipe because they're a crush gasket. When I pulled my turbo, I left it in there, and that's why it's gone. I got the motor lowered back down, and it's on the actual motor mounts, and they're all bolted in. When I did pull the turbo, and to raise the motor, I did do the 3 bolts on the bottom of this guy here to make sure that the motor could lift up freely. That helped quite a bit. So I think the next part on this back side of and underneath is gonna just be doing the downpipe and midpipe over here. So I'll get those thrown in, and then I think I am pretty much done underneath this side of the car. And then I'll come up here to the front, do the water pump and boost pipes and intercooler, oil and coolant. And I think I'm pretty much ready to go at that point. So getting close. All right, so got this placed in here. That was really quick. Just a quick note, I've done several downpipes recently, and this has to be the easiest one. There's just all kinds of room up underneath here. A lot of times it can be pretty difficult to get to the V-band. But as I place this stuff, I've got everything in here loosely. I don't have the V-band tight. I don't have the bracket tight. I don't have this tightened down. I don't have this tightened down. Anytime you're assembling pieces that have multiple touch points, places where you would secure it, you want to put that in loose first to make sure you can get everything started. And then I'm going to tighten back here, and then I'm going to tighten up here in this bracket. And then the last piece, because this is where the pipe slides in and out, is where I'll do that. This is Armytrix catless downpipe and full exhaust. So I'm running catless, but this bracket here, which I've seen on a lot of, I haven't had one aftermarket downpipe fit perfectly ever. The brackets are off, or they just don't fit quite right. They're not OEM, but they work. That's just whether you spend a lot of money or a little bit of money. That's just kind of the way it goes with aftermarket. But I'm gonna get this tightened up and we'll move to the front. Back here's my pipe, and I had to grind down this ridge in order for it to fit next to my inlet, since my inlet is oversized with that silicone on it. So if you guys are doing a custom intake, just keep that in mind. It gets pretty tight pretty fast. All right, so I've got my inlet pipe in right here. I don't have it screwed in yet, 10mm bolt. And then I have FTP charge pipe or boost pipe package, which is your turbo to intercooler hot side, and then intercooler up to the charge pipe on the cold side, as well as the charge pipe itself, of course. So I'm running my custom intake, which is pretty fat, and so that makes it very difficult to fit the FTP pipe in as well. Also, the FTP pipe, as most of you guys know, come in 2 pieces. Well, the problem with it being in 2 pieces is coming out of the intercooler, this has a jog on it off to the side, and it's got a jog on the off the end of this, and then they connect here. And so to get everything lined up and in place can be kind of difficult. So what I learned after battling it for a long time is you put this piece in. I'm gonna actually use multi-purpose grease and grease this connection. And I'm gonna slide the silicone piece all the way back up onto this pipe up in here so that it's completely out of the way with both of the hose clamps on it. That'll give me as much clearance as I need once I get the intercooler in place to then put this on the intercooler side. Then I can play with orientation, get them to line up. And then since this will be lubricated, I can pull it back down and then tighten it into place. So that's the idea. I battled with this for a super long time, mainly because of my oversized inlet. I can't really move, once this snaps on, I can't really move anything. So I kind of have to get the orientation on the inlet pipe or on the intercooler or turbo to intercooler pipe exact before I can do anything. Here's a shot from the top side to show how tight this is. And you can see I can't even fit my clip. So I'm gonna have to pull the inlet and then clip this in place and then come back down in here and put the inlet in. So obviously I'm doing this all before the water pump and whatnot as well. So back up in the air, pull the inlet, snap that pipe in place. Probably gonna get that turbo to intercooler pipe orientated correctly and all secure against the intercooler, and then I'll come up here from above and try to get my inlet in place. I mean, this thing, you can see why I use silicone. It hits in different spots. It hits the inlet pipe, it hits the thermostat. 3 inches is just huge in this area. That's why I went with a silicone 90 instead of, you can hard pipe a 90 there, no way. After some finagling, got the boost pipes in, and these are all super tight. All the clips are in, snapped into place, so that's good. And I got the inlet in and the 10mm nut on that. So now time for the water pump, which goes right here. Once the water pump's in and everything's plugged in and hooked up, I just have a few more parts. I've got like a heat shield that goes above the turbo manifold, and I've got this boost or the wastegate actuator to get in there as well too. And the vacuum line, sway bar, intake, plastic pieces, oil and coolant. So I guess I'm not almost done, but we're getting there. Water pump is in with its 3 bolts, inlet and outlet clamped, sway bars in, got both these secured and the end links secured to the sway. Everything's feeling really solid. I think I am done underneath the car, so let's go top side and continue up there. All right, so the top side's done. That consisted of putting in this shield right there, this metal guy right here that this mounts to. It is the module to control the pneumatic wastegate. So now I'm just gonna fill up with oil, coolant, and I got my intake situated. I'm just tightening up these clamps here, and I'm going to go back and unplug the high pressure fuel pump fuse so that it will prime the oil that I'm about to put in there. There we go. Got the heat running. Try to get the coolant cycling through. But little smoke is normal. Not sure if you guys, yeah, you can see that. That is normal though, as the turbo burns everything off. long as we aren't leaking underneath anything. Doesn't look like it. Sometimes those coolant and oil lines on the turbo itself they might not seat properly, and so you got to make sure that's not why you're leaking or smoking rather. But I pulled the high pressure fuel pump fuse. So the high pressure fuel pump fuse is the bottom left hand fuse. It's at 20, and it'll start for a second and then it'll die, and then you just try to turn it over several times to get that to purge out, or to get the oil going. Yeah, I'm burning all kinds of stuff.